Everybody's familiar with the Peak District. It was Britain's first national park, and visitors have been coming here since 1951 to look at the beautiful scenery. You can go walking and look at the local wildlife. Oh look, there's a sheep. Then you can buy gear to go walking with. There's an outdoor shop, and another one, and another one, and another one. And you can try the local cuisine. Look, there's a pudding shop, and another pudding shop. Or you could try Bakewell tart instead. Did I mention you could get a pudding? But I didn't want to just tell you about stuff that you already know about the Peak District, because everybody knows that stuff, right? So here instead is the alternative visitor's guide to the Peak District, and all the stuff you didn't know and would never guess was here. And since I'm talking about puddings, let's start in Bakewell, the home of the Bakewell pudding. It was back in the 1860s where an accident in the kitchens of the Rutland Arms Hotel saw the birth of the Bakewell pudding, which incidentally is very different from the Mystic Kipling variety. Many people confuse the two, but they couldn't be more different. Turned by the locals pudding pilgrims, up to 8,000 puddings are purchased every week in the summertime. Visitors can also take a tour of the bakery and even have a go at making their own pudding. Speaking of the Rutland Arms Hotel, this is the oldest coaching inn in Bakewell, and Jane Austen is said to have stayed here when she was writing Pride and Prejudice. You can see a recreation of the kitchen where the Bakewell pudding was born in Bakewell's Old House Museum, which is also where you can learn about the time an elephant escaped from a visiting circus and stampeded in the park in Bakewell. During a circus performance, a large male elephant called Old Paul became angry and escaped. The elephant grabbed one of the circus tent poles and began to shake it. The audience panicked and ran for the exits, whilst the enraged elephant was eventually shot in Bakewell Park. One of the elephant's feet is held by the Old House Museum today. Interestingly enough, at least 5 families in Bakewell claim to own one of the elephant's feet, but they can't all be right. Bakewell is also unusual as it has a disused railway track running alongside it that has now been converted into a popular trail for horse riders, cyclists and walkers. The Montauk Trail is fantastic because it allows you to see both stunning countryside views and also see some of Britain's railway heritage and experience this in a completely unique way. Here you can see the remains of old stations, remnants of paraphernalia relating to the railway, and even go through the tunnels and ride over the viaducts. You can hire a bike here to experience the trail at the speed you want to. There's no better view in the surrounding area, and it is the best place to have an ice cream on a sunny day or stop for a coffee and a snack at one of the old stations. Let's go back to the park in Bakewell. You might notice the church in the background of the park. Here you can find some very interesting coffins and an Anglo-Saxon stone monument which were discovered in the 1840s during restoration work on the church. The coffins have a hole in them so that the bodily fluids can drain away as the corpse decays. Yuck. On a less sinister note, Bakewell has been compared to Paris with its very own Nuff Knock Bridge, where people can mark their nuff. However, the district council have been threatening to remove the knocks for some time, so this may not be here for long. Speaking of notable churches in the area, Ashford in the Water is a picturesque village which has some stunning stained glass windows designed by famous pre-Raphaelite artists William Morris and Edward Burne-Jones. Here you can also see the appropriately named Sheepwash Bridge, and at key dates in the year you can actually see the sheep being herded from the ancient sheep pen and through the river to wash their fleeces. And the most notable church of all in the area must be the Cathedral of the Peak in Tideswell. The population of this village is less than 2,000 people, and yet it has its very own stunning cathedral. It is particularly worth visiting during the Well Dressing and Flower Festival weeks in September each year, as the cathedral is literally filled with flowers and greenery. There are also some famous people buried around the Peak District, including some people you wouldn't think would have their last resting place here. In Hathersage, for example, you can find the grave of Little John, made famous by the Robin Hood legends, and Enza village, just next door to Chatsworth, has the grave of Kathleen Kennedy, sister of American President John F. Kennedy. President Kennedy visited his sister's grave just 5 months before he was assassinated. Within Enza Church, you can also see the grave of Lord Frederick Cavendish, who was Irish Secretary in Gladstone's government. He was killed when he was hacked to death in Phoenix Park in Dublin in 1882 by a group of extreme Irish nationalists. If you carry on 6 miles down the road from Tideswell Cathedral in the Peak, you can visit England's highest town, Buxton. Buxton is a spa town which is home to the highest market in England at 1,032 feet above sea level. Regular markets are held on Tuesdays and Saturdays throughout the year. Don't forget to take your coat with you whatever time of year you visit, because as the locals say, it is always a couple of coats colder up in Buxton. Here you can see the source of the famous Buxton mineral water. Everyone loves to go for a walk when they visit the Peak District, but there are some really unusual things to see if you like to get out and about. If you take a walk up to Bleak No More, for example, here you can see the remains of a US Air Force bomber which crashed into the moors in 1948. The bomber was a Boeing RB-29A Super Fortress, and its eerie remains can be seen today as they have never been recovered from the top of the moor. The countryside that makes up the Peak District, as those Anglo-Saxon remains in Bakewell Churchyard would have shown you, has been around for a long time. And I mean a long time. Up on Stanton Moor you can see the remains of a Bronze Age settlement, and a whole of the moor is a scheduled ancient monument. The moor's association with Druids and ritual worship is particularly well known, and here you can see the Nine Ladies stone circle. This ancient monument has 9 stones, which are rumoured to represent 9 women who were transformed into stone when they were dancing on the Sabbath. Set back from the stone circle is a large king stone, which is supposed to represent the unfortunate fiddler who is providing the music for the ladies to dance to. The site remains a place for modern day druids to visit, with a votive tree on the site. Incidentally, this site is also the best place in the local area to see a UFO, as it is known locally as a UFO hotspot. The moor is also home to several large grit stones, which have been weathered into fantastic shapes. For example, the corkstone. Stones like the corkstone are great for having a go at bouldering, and as here with the corkstone, some handholds have been put in for climbers to have a go at. And on the eastern edge of the moor is also the Earl Grey Tower, which looks out of place up here in the middle of nowhere, but it's a funny, built by the Thornhill family to celebrate the passing of Grey's Historic Reform Bill in 1832, which gave men the vote. Speaking of voices from the past, the village of Sheldon, high above Bakewell and Ashford-in-the-Water, is well worth a visit. Sheldon is pretty much a one-street village, but at the end of it, you can find the remains of Magpie Mine. This is one of the best preserved lead mines in the area and dates from the early 17th century. The mine is no longer in operation, but locals will tell you that it is haunted by the old miners who still frequent Magpie Mine. It is said that if you stand at the top of the shaft, you can hear their ghostly voices echoing below. In 1946, some people exploring the mines saw a man with a candle walking along a tunnel before disappearing. Photographs taken at the time when developed showed members of the party standing on a raft in a flooded section of the mine, accompanied by an unidentified figure who seemed to be standing on top of the water. There is some fantastic wildlife in the Peak District, other than other sheep, but did you know you might also be fortunate enough to see wannabes whilst you are here? 5 Bennett's wannabes escaped from a private zoo at Roach's Hall during World War II. They bred, and now there may be as many as 50 wannabes living in the local area, and if you are lucky enough, you might actually see one. Another fantastic place with a hidden past is Nadybarrow Reservoir. At the bottom of the reservoir is the village of Ashopton that was abandoned and flooded to make way for the reservoir. During drought years, you used to be able to see the church steeple of the village, but this was knocked down because too many people were swimming out to it. Nadybarrow is also famous as the film location, and in 1955 Dan Bush was filmed here, as well as scenes from Mission Impossible in 2015. The tiny and little-known village of Stoney Middleton was also the site of some scenes from the latest film in the Mission Impossible franchise. Indeed, if you are interested in movie locations, the Peak District and its surrounding area is the place to visit. At Robin Hood Stride, for example, very close to the Nine Ladies Stone Circle that we visited earlier, was the film location for The Princess Bride. Here the actors from the film bumped into the metal band Anthrax, who just happened to be staying in the same hotel at the same time. Chatsworth House and the estate parkland surrounding the house was the film location for both Pride and Prejudice and The Wolfman. Scenic Matnall Bath, known as Little Switzerland for its alpine-esque scenery, was the film location for Dead Man's Shoes. Matnall Bath and its sublime scenery has been a site of inspiration for artists for centuries, and it is mentioned in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. During the novel, scientist Victor Frankenstein is en route to Scotland to make a female companion for the creature he has made when he stops in Matnall Bath to admire the scenery.
We left Oxford with regret and proceeded to Matlock, which was our next place of rest. The country in the neighbourhood of this this village resembled to a greater degree the scenery of Switzerland, but everything is on a lower scale, and the green hills want the crown of distant white Alps which always attend on the piney mountains of my native country. We visited the wondrous cave and the little cabinets of natural history, where the curiosities are disposed in the same manner as in the collections at Cerveau and Chamonix. The latter name made me tremble when pronounced by Henry, and I hastened to quit Matlock.
Matlock Bath held a festival with readings from the novel to celebrate this connection in 2018. Here you can go up in a cable car, just like in the Alps, and experience the scenery of Switzerland without leaving Derbyshire. All in all, the Peak District is a pretty interesting and inspiring place to visit. I hope these peculiar Peak District facts have encouraged you to visit and come and see us soon.